Welcome back, everybody. Talia is here in Detox Your Life, and today I have Kevin O'Connor with me. Kevin has the Spiritus Group, which is a consulting practice. He's a strategist, he's a mentor, and he works mainly in the business part with women that are starting or wanting to grow their business. He works with them through vision and through intuition, and he's basically making sure that their vision, their results, everything is aligned with what they want to create in life. And Kevin, I'm really excited to have you here with me today. I know that you've been supporting people in creating incredible results in their life. Actually, Kevin is doing way more than wealth. If you want, you can share a little bit with our listeners. But today we're going to focus on business. We're going to focus on wealth. Share with our listeners who you are. So happy to have you here.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here, and I've been looking forward to doing this all week. For me, there's power in simplicity. So let me give you sort of the top level about myself, and then talk to you a little bit about how I approach my consulting. So I am 60 years of age. I'm single. I was married for 30 years. I have 2 adult children who are independent. One's a professional hockey player. One's a women's coach. I am blessed in my life. I'm in Southern California. I'm a Canadian from Toronto. And for about 20 years, I operated my own business with a partner and also started a number of other businesses. I've started 12 businesses over the last 20 years in very diverse areas. And in the last few years, I have focused it was a calling really on working with women in business. I've always had sort of the key people in my businesses were women, and I have tons of time for women entrepreneurs. In fact, I have tons of time for women in totality, because I think that the feminine and the power of women is underestimated, and it's timely that we called on this energy to help right some of the big things that are going wrong in the world. There's a lot of toxic masculine energy floating around there holding us back, and it is the time for that to happen. So I've just always been drawn to supporting women, and I think it's because my oldest child is a woman, and she's pretty amazing. There's nothing she can't do. So why wouldn't I just sort of extend that to everybody else in my life? And then on the relationship side, I actually coach men because I was one of those guys who was stuck for many years as an entrepreneur who worked on his business, but that didn't necessarily work on the other aspects of life, which when combined with a rich and positive entrepreneurial life, make for a nice holistic positive experience. So I was really good in one area. I say that for me, I followed the gourmet pizza model, which is like, I was a very high achiever, and if you take a piece of pizza that has 8 slices, I had a beautiful vegan pizza with all sorts of veggies, but I forgot to dress one of the slices. So as I moved through my life, I was always sort of munching away on these wonderful pieces, and they were so tasty, I could ignore that one slice of pizza. And then I got to a certain point in my life, it's like, whoa, I barely cooked the crust on this side, and there's nothing on it. And that would be the side that relates to intimacy, connection, relationship, communication. So all the other pieces were pretty tasty, but the one critical piece of that pizza that was missing was the side that sort of really was emphasizing my own humanity. And thus, I have invested my last few years in transformation and making a difference in the emotional intelligence side of the equation.
Beautiful. I love that. Usually behind almost every person that I meet that is choosing to be in service to other people's growth on any level or any type, there is a really good story behind it. Whether or not we like it, a lot of people spend their whole life focusing on themselves, but then when something happens, like the understanding that we're not here alone, changes our lives. Do you have, I want to hear from you. What was like the big thing that had you realizing that you have so much to give and start focusing on other people?
Well, I can tell you, I wasn't actually focusing on my life. And that's a huge thing. I was actually focusing on living a story that somebody told me about my life. My story of achievement, of accomplishment, of success, of prosperity, of financial gain. a story that was lining up with perhaps filling some gaps from my childhood. So I wasn't actually living my story. I was living a story. And the big breakthrough was it wasn't my story. And so that was the end of my relationship of 30 years. That was the selling of my company. That was the packing up and moving and selling literally almost every possession I had and moving from the east coast of Canada to the west coast of Canada. That was just stripping everything away and saying, so what am I all about? And what I realized is that all of the things that I wanted in my life were somebody else's projections. And what I really love to do is connect and sort of be that loving person that I didn't experience as a child, as a young person. So my reorientation was towards love and passion and positivity and connection and mentorship and just being what some have called me being an energy angel, just putting it out there. And I'm way happier now than I was when I had way more material possessions. So, but that's kind of cliche, but it's true in my case. And there's a reason there's a cliche. It's because it actually holds true in many cases.
Thank you for sharing that. As I told you, I mean, as we all know, Detox Your Life is the name of our series because, you know, in order to grow, sometimes we get to do some cleaning. And cleaning doesn't have to do, obviously, only with dust. And it's not just detoxing only about the body. There's a lot of, it can be energetic, it can be people, it can be thoughts, it can be so many things. So connecting to the work that you are doing with women on business or creating, you know, deeper type of even wealth in their lives. What comes up for you when I'm saying detox your life?
Well, I think we just talked about how I detoxed it, which was to first of all acknowledge that the life I was living wasn't really my own. And so sometimes the detox is really about removing things so that you can get clarity. And for women entrepreneurs, usually there's something burning within them that says, I want to do this business. I want to start this up. I want to make this happen. And the first thing we want to do is sort of strip away all of the things that are interfering or conflicting with that vision, with that passion. So there may be some real kernel. This is the furnace. This is the fuel to their passion. It's right there. And then all around it are people saying, oh, no, I don't think you can do it. Somebody saying, are you really sure that's a lot? That's risky. Worrying about what impact that will have on the family, whether or not you have a supportive partner. So sometimes detoxing is really about deconstructing. It's taking things away so you're left with the essence, the purity, the focus, and the little engine, the little fuel rod for your passion, your dream. So for me, it's about removing distractions, things that interfere, stories, noise, to be able to get that beautiful clarity of what it is that you want to do with your business.
You know, a lot of people, when you talk to them about wealth, they go directly to money. You know, I'm wealthy, I'm rich. I have a lot of cash in my bank, big numbers. What does it mean for you?
For me, wealth is attached to the word experience, a wealth of experiences, because we're on this planet for a finite amount of time, and we're enriched by the experiences that we have throughout our life. So for me, a wealthy life, is just a plethora of experiences in life that enrich you, that feed you, that fill you up. So if you are pursuing a financial plan that has you stashing away a whole bunch of money, and at the expense of that singular focus of being able to say, I have a few $1 million in the bank, aren't I successful? You've given up the opportunity to have a wealth of experience with your children, with your partner, with your family, with the rest of the world, with your community, with even knowing what the planet is, or even having a connection with the planet. Then I would say to me, that's not somebody who's wealthy. Now, to be able to reach that conclusion, you have to have a willingness to evaluate and take a look at your values. So it's not for me to say that person isn't wealthy, but I wonder whether or not how they show up in relationship, how they are experiencing others and how others experience them is positive. So they may feel that they are financially stable and in a great place, but I wonder if they identify that there are gaps or deficits or that piece of pizza that I talked about earlier that's missing. And some people don't have an interest in knowing what they don't know. They just don't want to go there. And so we want to create a judgment-free zone. But back to your original question, it's, for me, wealth and experience are tied together very closely.
How do you make sure that it's being, created? Because a lot of people can spend their life focusing, not caring to know or about what they don't know, right? Just like, I know what I know, and I'm good in my little box. But at some point, they will probably feel like they're missing something. They just wouldn't know what it is because it's out there, outside of their box. But the feeling of I'm missing something will probably exist. So how would you say, because I know that a lot of people are experiencing this. I know I did a few years ago. Like, that's actually what brought me into all of this, deep dive into myself. So how do you make sure that even though they're pursuing, business success, wealth, how do you make sure this balance, my partners will kill me. We say fuck balance. There is no balance. But how do you make sure that everything works together?
I think you spoke about it briefly, because it starts with this vision. What is your vision for your life? And then for me, it's what are you doing each day that isn't aligned with your vision? And to me, when those things are working together with what I do each day is aligned with my vision, then I feel pretty filled up. I feel pretty like, whoa, fulfilled. This is positive. And I do believe that that's when you also manifest some financial prosperity as well, because things are moving along in such an aligned, positive, easy way that you just start attracting things, because money's energy, just start attracting the financial, prosperity. It's funny, we all as coaches and the people in transformation, we all have our bias. We actually, you heard you say, people will eventually get there. I think, for me, I have come to realize that some people will never get there. And that's okay. But I do get to choose who I spend my time with. So we could run around frustrated, as I probably would have, and said, like earlier, well, they need a breakthrough. They're stuck. I can see the potential that person has. And then you realize, in my world as a coach, that I'm probably imposing a certain set of values of my own. I have a bias, and I am imposing a view of their life that suggests that there's a deficit, there's a gap, that they're feeling lonely, there's something out. That's my perspective based on my values. And so some people get there, and that there is probably a place that you and I are familiar with, and that's probably why we call it there. And other people are just coexisting in life, and their there is very different. It's just a different place. And one of the things that's happening in society now is we struggle to be able to accept other people's there. We are imposing upon each other what the there, what the right, how it has to be. And then when we do that and we're in judgment, we lose the opportunity of really connecting with people. So I think one of the things that people have that are rich in the area that I know, they have a richness of perspective and of tolerance and of they lack. They're out of judgment. They're not in judgment. They're maybe in evaluation or in review or thoughtfulness, but they're out of judgment. So
how is this connecting? I love what you're saying, but I want to connect it also to the topic, because I think there's, it's very valuable. How is this connecting with creating wealth? This whole topic you just talked about.
It comes back to what we were talking about earlier, and I talked a little bit before the show, which was the power of intuition, the power of no. And if we were, because I work so much with the women entrepreneurs, I really think women's intuition, what's going on in their body, heart, soul, informs them of where they need to, what the decisions they need to make in their life. And that when they can be connected to that and they know that intimately and they know who they are, I believe, based on my experience, that their businesses do well. And when they start to break down, it's usually because somebody has started to talk to them, or they're starting to take inputs in from the outside world that lead them to not trust their own judgment, their own intuition. And if you ask a woman entrepreneur about something and you catch them at the right moment, says, is this the right decision? They will tell you right away, no. It's amazing. You'll ask a guy and a guy will go, well, I'll have to think about that. We look at the numbers, we'll evaluate that. You ask a woman, she says, no, I don't want to go that direction. I'll give you a perfect example. I was on a podcast the other day and I spoke about my daughter, who's a women's coach. And I showed her the podcast segment and said, they're interested in maybe having you on it. She looked at it in 2 seconds, the branding, the content, and she said, no, that's not for me. And I'm like, how do you know it's not for you? Because my analytical mind was like, they have a good reach. The person was very, like, she just knew, no, that's not on her strategy. And I thought, wow, like if only I could do that so well. And so as a result, she just didn't have any noise in her life around that opportunity. And so I think when we start to listen too much to other people, and often it can be a strong masculine in your life as a woman entrepreneur, I think that's when a woman can get derailed. So it's coming back to, why am I doing this? Who am I? What are my goals? Who do I want to reach? What's my message? And why am I? And it could be a product or it could be a service. And the closer you stay connected to that, the more prosperous you're going to be. And that's my experience. So I've seen it firsthand. And I have been the person, and I've made so many mistakes in my own life with not trusting my instincts and trying to analyze whether or not it's a good opportunity. I mean, I was talking to a friend yesterday, and I mean, she helped me with a reframe, but I mean, I have lost hundreds of thousands of dollars by doing what I think was a good thing from a business perspective. And if somebody had caught me at the right moment and said, how do you feel in your body about this? What do you think about this? At least on 2 occasions, I would have said, doesn't feel right. But I talked myself into it by following, my MBA analytical process of running through the data and saying, yeah, I think this is a good idea, without really checking in. And your body always knows. So back to your point, it's about intuition and vision and staying and cutting away all of the noise. And sometimes cutting away the noise means actually releasing yourself from certain relationships in your life where they're in judgment of you, and you find yourself wanting to people please around your business or what you're doing, and you're realizing, I'm not doing this for the right reason. I'm doing this through the approval of my partner, my father, or I've chosen this job because somebody thinks it's the right thing for me, but my heart's not into it.
That's so important. So we're talking a lot, and we discussed it, I think, right before we started recording, but we're talking a lot about how, coming from a place of responsibility, right? We create everything, and we also oftentimes self-sabotage. Like we say, I want this business, I want this success, I want this relationship, I want this, whatever it is that I want. But then we take actions, we do things that are not actually supporting us having it happen. So how is it showing up in your area?
I think we all have a story about ourselves. And when it's not showing up, it's because we have not written a new story. And so we may have a vision, but we have not translated that we've not internalized that. We've not made that part of our DNA. So the ego story starts clicking in and it says, yeah, you're not really good at this. Or yeah, that you should double check on that. Oh, I don't think you're really cut out for doing this thing. And then it's like, oh, and of course it doesn't work out. And your playing small. You're being held back by the old story, by the old interpretation of who you are. If you're going to have a vision and you're going to do something new, it means you absolutely have to see yourself as being someone different than the person who is living the other story. Because, otherwise, wherever you go, there you are. And you want to go someplace that you're creating that's a new experience for yourself. And so I think a lot of the self-sabotage is getting an ego and getting into thinking about how others might see you, how you used to be, and it feels comfortable. And you're outside of that place where you are pushing into new territory. So I think that's a big part of that. Does that make sense to you in terms of being stuck in your old story?
Absolutely. So I'm hearing you saying not only not being stuck, but also recreating. So creating a story that actually supports what you're up to and what you want to achieve. Yes.
Imagine you want, like I'm sure you created this podcast and this series. And this summit, there was a vision. At some point in your life, if I had said to you, can you see yourself doing that? You probably would have had two answers. I think I could do it, and I can't see myself doing it. So you knew innately you had the skills that you probably could pull it off. So we know we have these resources internally. We usually know what we're good at. But whether you could actually see yourself doing it, you probably would, as you imagined that, you would see all the reasons why you would fail at it, and it wouldn't be for you. So there is a stripping away of all of those reasons that you can't do something and trusting what you know you can do, which is anything.
Yeah.
That makes sense?
Completely. Super aligned with our message and what we do. So.
And I wish I had done that at 25 or 30. I had the same capabilities I did at 60. In fact, I had more, but I did not have, there was just so many things standing in the way of me that I could imagine myself. I knew that I had these capabilities. There was a huge amount of fear between where I was and what I thought I could do. And so maybe that's another point to your thing about detoxing, which is identifying where the fears are and starting to realize that fear is a creation of our own selves. And you can manage fear just like you can manage every other challenge in your life. And maybe we don't acknowledge that there's fear. We make up reasons. I can't do that now. I can't do this at that time. I don't have the resources to do it. And if someone really strips it back, it's like you're afraid, you're scared. And then it's like, what are you scared of? I'm scared I'll fail. What does it mean to fail? Well, it means I'm not good enough. How long have you thought you've been not good enough? I've always thought of now. It's like, hey, there we go. We're getting somewhere. It's not that these things aren't lined up in your business. It's that you are stuck and you are connected to that fear so powerfully that you can't get to the next step. So I think that speaks to reflection and insight and probably having counsel from somebody else. And we talked a little about that earlier as well before we came on, the importance of having a support system.
Yeah. Yeah. You also, I know, talk about, temptations and things to avoid. Would that fall under self-sabotaging? And if yes, what are your thoughts about that?
I wonder for some people, for all of us, I wonder if naturally we self-sabotage. I don't know that it's something unique to, like some people do and some people don't. I think it's just sort of a way that we live our lives. And I think it's a protective strategy. So maybe it's self-limitation, a lack of self-awareness. But maybe when we're talking about self-sabotage, it's just a natural way for us to be because we want to be safe. So maybe there's an idea that we have to come across, that we have to dig into, which is what is safety to us? So is there the safety of being comforted and not, being uncomfortable? Can you be safe and uncomfortable? I don't know. Do you think you can be safe and uncomfortable?
To me, most of the time, safety and comfort go together.
Mm-hmm.
I feel comfortable when I'm safe, like they just usually go along.
Mm-hmm. Can you be uncomfortable and safe?
Uncomfortable.
And safe.
Yeah. Yeah, because discomfort could be different things. So right. I can be uncomfortable and safe, yeah. I mean, I like it, but I could be.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's probably something you had to learn, though. Do you think we learn to be, like, I'm just thinking about the kids running around a playground, doing crazy things, hanging off some of this stuff is uncomfortable, but they feel pretty safe. Somewhere along the line, we learn that in order to feel, we need comfort. Comfort and safety are attached, and I mean, I'm sure you've heard this before, which is the primary distinction between people who are really successful and who are others who are just sort of averaging, is that the people who are really uncomfortable, the people who are really successful have more uncomfortable conversations.
Mm. Well, coming from a space of just being okay with being uncomfortable, because understanding that when you're in a comfort zone, there's less, I guess, growth and success and growth, connect.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So if we're coming back to this concept of detoxing, we probably have to let go of this idea that we always need to feel comfortable and that our goal is comfort as opposed to growth. So that somewhere along the line, there's a switch that says, if you're feeling too comfortable, you're probably not going to achieve your goals. And I think that there's a relearning that's required around that.
Yeah. Go ahead.
And I was just thinking about, probably it's understanding that there's nothing bad going to happen. I work with women entrepreneurs. There is a certain amount of fear. We live in a fearful society. We're afraid of everything. And we live our lives sometimes by just trying to minimize the amount of fear we have in our lives. Okay, so it's a good day. Why? Because nothing bad happened. Is that a good day? I mean, but nothing great happened. Well, I made sure nothing great happened by avoiding doing anything really, unusual. So that I avoided being really successful because that was a good way of avoiding that there would be failure. Because I don't like failure. It's like, wow. It's like people who fall in love. I'm not ready for a relationship. Well, I'm going to get my heart broken. It's like, you probably are. But if you had your heart broken, it means you really loved. So you can't have a broken heart if you weren't in love. So if you're avoiding a broken heart, you're avoiding being in love. And love's pretty powerful. If you're avoiding having a failed business or making a mistake in business, then you're avoiding being successful in business and taking risks, which is pretty exciting and powerful. So, mediocrity is kind of like death. I'm avoiding all of these things. I don't want these things to happen. So how's your life going? It's okay. Is it exciting? No, because to be exciting, I'd have to take some risks, which means I could fail, which is really unpleasant. I hate failing. So you hate living then.
Yeah, that's so funny. We literally just had a conversation about failing. How many people don't like the word, like, I don't never want to fail. Don't say that I failed, I learned. No, you failed. It's fine to fail. It's okay. You learn, you move on, you grow. There's some resistance to certain words that are being framed in a negative way. And just like you say, I love that you just said it. Like when you avoid this, you can't, stop yourself from avoiding all the good stuff too. You're just blocking yourself to reality, to possibilities.
Yeah. Maybe today when we're talking about detoxing, we're talking about the importance of relanguaging or learning a new language associated with our lives. And maybe the self-sabotage is just being stuck in conversations that have always been happening in our lives. And that to detox is to be aware of the language of our thoughts about ourselves. And so if you start thinking, and women are very aware of this because women are there's so much judgment in women. I mean, it's so pervasive. I remember my daughter saying to me once, she said, "Dad, how does a father talk to his daughter about her body?" This is her, and she had read this, and I said, "I don't know." She said, "He doesn't." And what that point of is that there are messages of judgment around women, particularly all their lives, like all their lives. And I bet you it's hard for a woman to go through a few moments without, in business and in personal life, without thinking, oh, I should do this better, or I messed up on this, or I'm putting on weight, or my body's not so great, or I have to do something that, it's like there's this constant language of judgment goes on. So maybe detoxing is a matter of letting go of judgment and of that, being really aware of that language, the language of how we think about ourselves.
Yeah, which completely connects to what you said at the beginning, right? You talked about the stories created by the words that I'm sharing, whether it's with other people or with myself about myself.
Mm-hmm. So maybe, I love this kind of conversation, maybe one of the keys to detoxing is listening to your own languaging. Hearing yourself think. What did you just say about yourself in your mind? Oh, my stomach's getting a little big, or I don't look so good, or I'm really tired, looking very or I should be doing better at that, or yeah, it's like, wow. Every one of those is a reframe, which is, I'm looking pretty good for my age. Yeah, I'm carrying a little weight, but I feel amazing. I'm so blessed. I could be sick. I don't have COVID or whatever. I mean, every one of those is a reframe that leads to a positive feeling. It's, my hair's message, I could be like, hey, I wish I had more hair. It's like, wow, I am so ready for the day in the morning after washing my face. I don't have to deal with my hair. It's like, I'm balding. Yeah, I'm a good looking balding man. Way to go. I mean, every moment of thought is an opportunity for a reframe that pushes us forward or holds us back. So there's that consciousness. It's really conscious thinking about what we're saying to each other. Because if you say to yourself, you say to somebody else, right? You judge yourself all the time. You're judging everybody else. That's what
language is. It's definitely a huge part if you want to detox or stop self-sabotage, no matter actually which topic we're even talking about. This could be related to, health, wealth, relationship, or any other area that exists in your life. So I love that you're bringing it back to that, because our language creates, it creates your reality. It creates so much, creates every result that exists in your life.
So just along that, so yesterday when I was talking to my friend, I said, yeah, I had a couple of bad investments. She said, can I offer you some feedback on that? I said, sure. She said, I have a very, very successful business associate who's worth millions and millions of dollars. He said, if you have not lost six figures as an entrepreneur at one time in your life, you're not actually playing in the big leagues. She said, so in fact, you losing money on some investments and some businesses you're involved in actually was a rite of passage. You're in the big leagues now. I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. I'm actually, what I thought was just failures or feeling very bad was in somebody else's perspective, like, yep, you took a risk, you took a chance, it didn't work out, but that shows sort of the space you're playing in. I was like, ooh. So I actually get off the call thinking, oh, that's cool. So do you see how she completely had me rethink that? And now it's stuck with me today. I'm thinking, yeah, that was just part of my journey. And so that languaging is really, really important. Maybe that's the theme of today, is just the power of our own, the language we use in terms of being able to set ourselves up for positivity or negativity in our life.
Yeah, and that, like you said, can be the language that we speak with ourselves or with other people. So let's take it even farther to speak about communication when it comes to creating the wealth that we want, having the success that we want in that area, having our dreams coming true. So whether it is communication with like a partner in business or people in your life, can you touch on that for a little bit?
Sure. I'm going to throw a concept out. What if communication with your partner in business or in your personal life was really an opportunity for you to be able to listen? What if we communicated so that we could hear? We didn't communicate so that we could feel that something that I come from, that something that we felt we needed to say would get out. We actually communicated so that we could get feedback from what we're saying so we could learn. And if you make that shift, you choose a completely different way to communicate, and you choose completely different set of things that you say. So last night, I sent a note to somebody I'm dating, and I woke up this morning and I realized I wrote that note basically to prove that I was right. And even, the fact that I pay attention to this stuff, it was like late at night, and it was polite, but it was like, I want to make sure that I understand that I'm right about this thing. That wasn't so that there was conversation or for her to give me feedback. That was just kind of like, just getting something off my chest. Now, if I had to switch that and said, like, your goal in sharing something with her was to elicit an exchange and to keep this lovely feeling going on, I would have chosen something completely different to write about or to respond to or to say. So communication, the come from is so important. Why am I going to say this to my employee? Why am I saying this? What do I want to accomplish? What's the importance of this message? Do I want the message to be, how do I want this message to land, to be received? And if we think, and we add the word conscious in front of communication, we're conscious of that communication, then we're going to get different results. And that comes back to your point about responsibility, that if we're consciously communicating, then we're actually taking responsibility for an outcome, as opposed to just like letting it out and saying, well, it's your problem if you react to that. I don't have anything to do with that. It's like, actually, you probably could have gotten a different outcome if you had have chosen a different way to communicate. You are responsible for that outcome. It's part of that responsibility equation. So the conscious communication is different for me. And also, people say, oh, the sign of a good business relationship is they can really communicate. And I think, yeah, but a really, really good relationship is where they can actually understand each other. So there's communication going on, but there's really understanding going on. That's layered really and deep. Because I think there are some people who communicate back and forth. Oh, they seem to be really good communicating, but they're not actually understanding. And on the surface, they look quite adept at being able to share information, but they're not really hearing each other, understanding. So it's the understanding that's way more important than the communication. That's why. Go ahead.
So somebody that's listening to you right now, and they're realizing that they thought until now they're communicating great, but actually they now get it. Like, I'm not actually understanding what the person says. How do you recommend to them? What are steps they can take to improve that in their life?
Well, the first one is just what's your come from. If I say to you, hey, I can say to you, hey, your hair is looking pretty wild today, like pretty big. My come from could be that somewhere along the line, I believe that straight hair was cool, and and being expressive with my hair, your hair was not polished. Or I could literally be going like, which I really am, going like, I love your hair. I said the same words, but that might come from, in one case I was in judgment, or I had an opinion, or I was trying to give you a message that maybe and then you think, oh, should I have done something to my hair? In another case, it was like you felt good about what I said. So, and then what happens is that most people know what the other person's come from is. They're hearing the come from, they're hearing the motivation of why that person said that. And then they say it. It's like that was kind of like passive aggressive. That didn't feel good. And here's what happens. The person defends it. What do you mean? I was just saying something about your hair. You're taking it too serious. You're so sensitive. It's like, no, you were communicating to me and I could tell what you were thinking. So we have a responsibility if we want to get positive outcomes as a result of communication. really being clear what our come from is. And if our come from is judgment, criticism, and we're trying to indirectly give feedback, then the other person is going to pick that up, and we're not going to get the result we want. So you asked me what the number one thing is when you go to say something. What's driving me to say that? What's leading me to say that? And how will it likely be received? How do I want it received? What's the outcome I want? And then if none of those things are really that good, maybe I don't need to say it. Maybe this is just me. I'm kind of in a bad mood and I need to somehow, share that bad mood with people because I'm not working through what's troubling me. So the come from is so important. And also asking for feedback. This one, it's like at some point you have to say, what did you hear me say? And how do you feel about what I said? And they might say, what I heard you say, that you don't like my hair. And what I think that it's kind of shitty. I think that's not very nice. I mean, I'm going on a podcast. You just said something about my hair. Thank you very much. And then, and so you have to be willing to be able to, I see how you see that. I could say that. There's probably some validity to that. Or was not my intention. I can be a little bit more thoughtful about how I speak to you. So ask for feedback, ask for what people are hearing you say, and also what you come from. Those are the two things I would suggest.
Beautiful. I love it. And I want to see if you have like a simple, probably you do because of your practice, simple tool that you can recommend to all of our listeners right now. They want to have, the life of their dreams when it comes to, the domain of wealth. What are some simple tools or strategies they can start implementing to stop sabotaging their happiness?
What part of you are you avoiding dealing with? Like we all have something, a shadow, something. And, it goes back to that slice of pizza. I didn't know it wasn't there. We all have something that is one, and we know it. I know we know it. I know it about myself. We know the one area that we just don't want to dig into. And yet, if that area is dealt with, it can change your life. So it could be one relationship. No, I'm good with everybody. What about your father? No, we didn't talk that much, but I'm good with everybody. I'm getting along with everybody. What was it like growing up with your father? He was a very special man in my life, but we sort of fallen apart. We don't talk much. And it's like, yeah, so do you think about him? Yeah, I do. But yeah, he's never, we'll get there someday. And, it's like, and that's like, man, when I dig into that one, you're going to get a different outcome. I reminded of a story about how lions hunt, and this story about hunting for they were on a plain in Africa, and the old lions would creep up close to the herd of antelope, and they would roar really, really loud, and the younger lions were down a ways, and the antelope would turn and run, and the younger lions, which were very quick, would take down the antelope. And then one day, the big lions, they roared and roared and roared, and one antelope panicked and ran directly towards the roaring old lions, which were not very fast. And that antelope just sailed right through and was, killed. And that always stuck with me because it's really about running towards the roar, running towards the discomfort, doing the thing that seems to be the hardest. And so there's one thing, it's like you wake up, there's one thing that that you don't want to do. It's uncomfortable, maybe it's pervasive in your life, one relationship, one conversation, one customer. There's one thing. And if you deal with that, one uncomfortable conversation like we talked about earlier is a predictor of success. To me, the more that you do that, the more that you're in that exceptional territory, because then there's nothing you can't do. The other stuff just is easy. It's just easy. So you have that difficult conversation And you know what's amazing is I don't know anybody who's ever told me that they didn't feel better at some level. May not have got the outcome. The person might have said, you're still a jerk. But it's like, I feel so much better. At least I know that like I didn't give up on that person. I told them I loved them. They totally ignored me. They said, I hate you. They walked away and I was like, okay. But I told them I loved them. I was clear with them. I know who I am. I was consistent, and they will feel better. So have that difficult conversation is my suggestion.
I absolutely love this piece of advice. Do the one thing you're not comfortable with and do one every day. Oh my God, the growth that is available for us out there.
Yeah, and I don't want to suggest people like deal with like massive, like I got to get up and I heard Kevin talking today. Oh my God, my alcoholic uncle, I have to call him. And you know, I was like, but there are moments every day of avoidance, Like you pivot. It's like, I'll do that. It's like, I'll do that. And procrastination often is a moment, is really about doing something that you perceive as uncomfortable and forgetting that as soon as you start to do it, it becomes comfortable. It's like, I thought it would take 2 hours. I knew it was going to take 6. I did it. Hey, I did something the other day. At the end of the day, I remember thinking like, I did a couple things I didn't really want. I knew I had to do that I didn't really want to do. And they were actually kind of fun. I was like, oh, that was pretty good. I had a good day. So, there are little things. And my brother's a screenwriter, and in one of his screenplays, there's there's this exchange between this guy and his friend. And his friend, he says, how did I end up here? And his friend says, thousands of consecutive bad decisions. Like it wasn't like you just woke up one day and your life's a mess. It was like a little decision didn't serve you, a little decision didn't serve you, and then lo and behold, you're there. Well, if you flip that around, which is 1,000 uncomfortable conversations or things that are just holding you back, imagine your life. So that's what's possible.
Kevin, thank you so very much. I really appreciate you joining in and really, investing your time into supporting other people and creating their best life. I would love for you to share with our listeners how they can find you, maybe social media.
Mm-hmm. So I have a really complicated social media title. It's just Coach Kev OC, Coach Kev OC. And that is the best way. Just follow me on Coach Kev OC, ask me a question. And I love to live in that space between personal development and business acceleration. And that's why I love working so much with women, because their heart and their soul and their mind are usually aligned with what they do to make a living. And so there's not life coaching and business coaching. There's just, being supportive and encouraging and helping people see things, and that blends the both. So that's the space I live in. It's fun.
It's all connected. Kevin, thank you so very much for your time. It's been a pleasure.
My pleasure.